Welcome to the Fleettalk ROCKcast, our public safety podcast powered by Rock Communications. This is where the people who build, maintain, and depend on mission-critical communications come together to talk real-world operations, lessons learned, and the technology that keeps first responders connected when it matters most. We cover the stories, the systems, and the hard lessons learned behind the scenes, so when it counts, our radios just work. This is the Fleettalk ROCKcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the next edition of the ROCKcast podcast by Fleettalk by Rock. Just as our last episode, I'm joined to my left by Tripp Williamson. I'm Matthew Littleton, and this is Cody Bishop. And we want to talk to you today about Winter Storm Fern and everything that we did as a company and along with our customers to get ready for the storm, during the storm, and then what we did coming out of it and what we learned coming out of it. For those that are watching it may not know, our area was affected by a pretty significant ice storm. We were fortunate that it was not as bad as forecast. It still had its effects, and it was all brought on by a major winter storm that the National Weather Service named Fern. And so I want to start off talking about system preparation, what we did as a company, as Fleettalk by Rock, to get ready for the storm. Let's start talking about some things that you did in anticipation of the storm besides living the good life.
Oh, yeah. Well, coming off a cruise and coming back to subarctic conditions from Caribbean conditions, well, that sure was fun. But no, I guess before we even really start talking about the system things that we did, I think my biggest takeaway from the overall efforts of preparation for this storm was just how much everybody kind of woke up and said, Helene caught us really off guard. Let's just make sure we're prepared or over-prepared. And I saw that in the community. I saw that from a lot of organizations. Everybody is kind of maybe crying wolf a little bit, but that's not a bad thing, right? Being prepared and having your options laid out, extra food at the house, extra water at the house, a lot more preparedness going around than there was for previous storms and hurricanes. So that was cool to see the community aspect of the preparedness and the communications that was coming down from all the local agencies and things like that. But so, I guess let's shift into talking about what we did, Rock Communications did as a precursor to the storm. And I know it started, I guess middle of the week before the storm hit, we started sending technicians out.
We actually started on Monday.
Right.
And I think we started discussing it the weekend before because it was looking like, how are we, a week out is a long way when it comes to weather, but we started leaning forward and our thoughts were, well, if we have to order propane, we need to order that sooner than later.
Right. Everybody's going to be ordering propane.
Yes. And so, of course, we do active monitoring at all of our sites, but there's nothing that takes the place of being able to go put your hands on stuff, visit a tower site, and actually look at things. But yeah, it actually started. And going back to what you said, the community preparedness, I was pleased to see how serious our communities took the threat. And what I think I would encourage our community is don't look at this and say, oh, here it is again. They just blew this way out of proportion. They don't get a crystal ball.
But you have to take every one of them serious.
You do. And so, just like with Helene, so many people didn't take that storm serious and then look at what it caused. I'm glad to see it. I hope the next one that comes along, we don't scoff at it and say, it's not going to happen.
Yep.
We started the weekend before. We started having conversations. And then the Monday before the storm, we started visiting sites. We load tested generators. And the day that we visited, it was cold the days which was good because that means if the battery is going to be weak, it's going to be weak there too. So yeah, I enjoyed getting to go see all of those sites. And then, we found one. We only had one that could have used some additional propane, but everything else was good.
It just goes to show, the preventative maintenance side of things, and it's, we did take some time getting prepared, but, we didn't necessarily have to because we take that into account all year long. And it's one of the coldest couple of days I've felt in a long time. And to see that resiliency, what Tripp touched on earlier in the community after Helene, of prior to, I was the only one in Northern Tool, and then I went in there to get batteries the other day, and half of Greenville County was in there. So, it seems like everyone's learned their lesson. So I think it was a good time, and to see how well preventative maintenance goes when we do go to visit these sites. We're not out having to fix things. We're genuinely just checking things. Okay, fuel's good. This is good. We could do this, but we don't necessarily have to. But just seeing that year-round the work we put in, it's ready no matter the time.
I think that goes because, obviously we don't want to have an outage. We don't want to have an issue. We don't want our customer to experience that. But from a company perspective and a safety perspective, we don't want to have to be out in that environment. We would rather our folks stay home. We'd like to be off the road because we don't need anybody on the road.
Yeah. And the ice is just a totally different, you can't do anything with it. I mean, it's not like you're going to take a chainsaw and cut the tree out of the way or the roads are wet and slick. Now, they're just impassable. I mean, even days later, there's still spots around the state that you can barely traverse because of the ice accumulation on the road. So we want to make sure we don't have to go visit those sites. And, I think that forward looking and just double checking, triple checking, it doesn't take a lot of effort to do that, to avoid potentially putting someone in a dangerous position, potentially having an impact on the system. So I think that's always worth it to go out and visit these sites before there's a known storm. And we've got such a great group of people and a great team of people that it's not like 3 people have to see all 100+ sites in the state. We can divide and conquer and really efficiently visit those sites in a day, 2 days. I mean, that's probably one of the more powerful things that our company can do is just our assets are spread out around the state and being able to jump on it and visit those sites very quickly.
Well, a couple of things I think that we do a little different than most places is we're pretty transparent with our customers. And so, we told our customers, this is what we're doing. This is what we need, in the unlikely event we have an issue, here's where we're going to need your help.
Right.
Kind of thing. And, but getting ready at the sites, we went out, we tested generators, batteries, oil. Did we have fuel, whether it's propane, whether it's diesel, whatever the case may be. And then we looked at, are there any trees that are leaning over a fence or a guy wire or something like that? Is it something we need to go ahead and address now? Because if it's a threat now, it's for sure going to be a threat in an ice event. We looked at all that. We load tested, and for people who are watching that don't know what load testing is essentially we trick the generator into thinking the power has failed. We disconnect the main breaker, power goes off, site runs on battery as it's designed to until the generator fires. Generator then the transfer switch transfers power from commercial power to the generator, and we make sure it runs like it's supposed to. We did that at every site, and everything tested successfully. We had no issues. The only thing we had to do was we had a propane tank level that was a little low, and we ordered propane for it, just as out of an abundance of caution. We identified 3 critical sites in the forecast affected area that we knew if we had a problem, we were going to have to get to by foot. There was going to be no road access. And we delivered a portable generator to those sites along with extra gasoline just in case.
Yeah, that forward staging of assets into potentially impassable areas was good. And we did that across the state. I know you had 3 up your area, but I know down my way we took a few more and spread them around. We obviously knew your area was going to get hit, in the upstate a lot harder than me towards the middle of the state. But having the forethought to go ahead and deploy those assets and stage them into areas we might need them, that was a smart move. I don't think we used any of them.
We did not.
But, it sure is easier to fire a generator than it is to drag a generator through the woods. So that was definitely a good idea and probably something that we're going to do moving forward automatically. We've got so many of those things around now that we can easily do that.
Well, I think part of it too, Tripp, is that, we don't expect there to be a failure.
Nope.
We don't. We've spent a lot of money. We've upgraded generators. We've replaced generators. We've done a lot of things to give us as much resilience as possible. But we're also realists, and we look at it. One of the sites in particular, that there's no way. I mean, Cody was there night before last, and 3 days after the storm is over, it's still impassable by vehicle. It's still a sheet of ice, and he had to walk to the site. Even after the storm was over, we went and visited every site again in the affected area.
Right. That follow-up aspect after the storm rolls through is certainly important. But, all this stuff is mechanical. All this stuff is real. It's humans. It's mechanical. it's going to fail. It's going to break. Things are going to happen. And I guess now is probably a good time to talk about some of the things we saw happen during the storm.
Well, we do, but before we get in that, I want to really hit on our pace planning.
Okay.
Cody, anything we missed that you saw listening? Because you weren't quite out in it as much as we were, but you had you had kind of
just smarter than what they are.
Yeah, you are. But I think Tripp was the smartest one of all of us. I mean, how do you plan to be on a cruise during all of this? You know,
all I'll say is Starlink on cruise ships is absolutely amazing. I mean, I participated in every conference call with the state and built reports and got information to you guys from the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, that was still pretty cool to see, that ability even when you're far away. But no, I mean, if it wasn't for this, I'd have booked another week and said, good luck, guys. I'll catch you when it warms up.
And what a comfort it brought, the pre-work we did do, so that when it all started, we're at home with our families, and I've got small kids, so it's like, what a comfort to know, hey, I can go outside and sleep with the kids, and unless that phone starts going off, I'm good to go. I don't have to sit by the computer and worry all day.
Well, I think that's a good lead into our pace planning. Something that we in the emergency communications world talk about a lot is pace planning. PACE stands for primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. And it's when you're developing your plans, and it's not just communications, it's every asset or facet of preparedness. And so in the good day, primarily, this is what we're going to use. If that fails, here's our alternate. If that fails, here's our contingency. And if that fails, here's our emergency. And so something we did this time around is we leaned forward and shared that information with our customers. And that was your brainchild. You'll talk about that for a minute?
Well, one of the things that kind of always sticks in the back of my head is, and again, a lot of this stems from Helene and the experiences that we lived firsthand. How do we talk to our customers? How do our customers talk to us? How do we communicate amongst our team? I think everybody here understands how we do that, but it's the simple act of writing it down and sharing it and just driving home the fact of, all right, if we need to get in touch with you, we're going to call you on this channel. If you need to get in touch with us, you call us on this channel. And I know that sounds strange because we're two different channels and things like that, but it's very intentional based on the system and the way the system is designed. So, just telling our customers, hey, you need us, call us on the radio here. If you can't, call us on the phone. If you can't, send us an email. And we did. We laid out that PACE plan, this, and this, if you need us. And, I hope that gave them some comfort, knowing that they had alternate ways of communicating with us. And likewise, around our team, understanding that this is our primary form of communications, this is our backup, this is, all of the different aspects. So having it written out and designed in a plan that everybody got via email well in advance of the storm, it gives you a safety net or a comfort layer of, if I need Cody, I know how to get in touch with him.
And I think that was a good point in the implementation of it that a lot of people would overlook is setting a time frame on it, because we have a normal day-to-day operation, but hey, getting that email out prior and say, hey, through this date or the foreseeable future, this is the operation. But then after everything's back to normal, we go back to normal. So putting a time frame on that PACE plan, as opposed to, it's sunny, the weather's good, and then we're still trying to talk to each other on these channels. It's, it was good to have those dates in place to know when we should be using this PACE plan.
Right. I would have never thought to send that out like you did. So kudos to that. And I think too, it in some ways prompted our customers to consider their PACE plan as well. One of my jobs is to reach out to our customer points of contact. And one of the conversations I had with them, look, if this ends up like it's forecast to be and you have a problem, it's going to take us time to get to you.
Right.
It's going to, and so one of my customers in particular, we actually had a discussion about what we felt like their biggest risks were and how to mitigate those risks. 10, 15 minutes on the phone, and we got done with the conversation. Everybody felt comfortable. Everybody felt like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And again, that goes back to years ago when we leaned forward and said, hey, we want to put control stations in addition to your consoles with outside gain antennas, just in case.
Right.
And, we didn't have to use any of that, but sure is comforting to know that you have that capability if it is there.
No, I just think it was good with the mitigation of risk to us. Our customers are so used to us showing up when we're needed, and, no matter the scenario, no matter the case, and having that in place for us, as technicians here to know that, okay, these are your boundaries of operation, and if beyond this point, we're not going to risk your safety to do it. So transparency with our customer on that, saying, okay, it's going to take us time, but if these are the cases, it's going to take us more time because we do have these things in place. And I thought that was good in that planning period to make sure we're safe, because we are so used to, and we're gung ho to get out and, go have some fun and go do some cool stuff.
I'm not anymore.
But at the same time, it's, there is a lot of risk involved in that, especially during an ice storm. So I thought that was good.
And so, every one of these events that we go through and every one of these exercises that we participate in, we learn something new, and we're I don't know, sharpening our knife or fine-tuning our craft of customer support and service. And, we have a tool now that in 1 second, you can send out a message to every customer in the entire system, in a region. I mean, that level of efficiency has come from all these events and needing to reach out to our customers and stuff like that. You're not having to go back and look through a list of customers and attach them to an email. It's a checkbox.
Yeah.
And to be able to reach out and touch those customers that quick is, it's pretty cool. And again, that's a feature that we've come up with and a tool we've built after these events. So having those abilities to communicate with our customers.
I think something we did this year, this event, and then really you were kind of the point of contact liaison for it, is we had more communication with ESF2 at the state.
We did, yeah.
And when I say that way, I don't mean it's that ESF2 hasn't communicated with us. It's just we historically have not had that level of dialogue, be it from our point of view or theirs, whatever the case. We just didn't do it. And this year, we really this event we really had a lot of conversation.
We did, and I think that partnership with those guys has really grown since Helene and a lot of the exercises and things that we've participated in. So that relationship has gotten a lot stronger, and I think, just looking from the outside in, I think they've taken a more proactive look at it too with these storms,
and not just with us, with everybody.
Yeah, with everybody, not just us to Fleettalk to ESF2, but ESF2 in general has really made an effort to communicate better with all their partners.
For those of you who are watching or listening, ESF2 stands for Emergency Support Function number 2, and that's a function within an emergency operations center. And in this case, we're talking about the state's emergency operations center. They're responsible for, ESF2 is responsible for communications lifelines across the state during a disaster. And so we had lots of conversations. One of the things that we all learned during Helene is there's not enough of us to go around during a major disaster. So what you saw was, if I was out at a tower site that's co-located with another company or another agency or another county's tower site, we were looking out for each other's stuff. Hey, your propane level is here. Hey, your diesel level is here. Hey, this is, and so that function of ESF2 really has grown to expand a lot of that. And there's an app that they use that we're able to coordinate, communicate. Somebody might, if one of us put on that, hey, we're visiting this tower site, you might see somebody, hey, can you check on while you're there? And you saw that a lot. So that coordination, I think, was really cool.
Yeah. It's a great example of private public communication and partnership. Those calls, those planning calls we had throughout the week, where it wasn't just radio vendors. I mean, it's internet vendors. It's all the major cell phone carriers. It's anybody that has a communication lifeline. They were involved in that call, and it was cool to see, our response before the storm, but seeing other vendors like cell phone providers and how they were forward deploying assets and understanding their plans too. We don't know everything, and so anything we can learn from them is always great too.
Absolutely.
So it's a good thing to be a part of.
Well, let's move into problems that we encountered during the storm, and I was optimistic by we'll say 1 p.m. local Sunday of the storm that, what, we're going to be okay. I start noticing this squall line of rain moving out of western Georgia coming this direction, and I thought, this ain't going to be good. That rain, and the temperatures I think at that time were 27, 28 degrees, and the forecast said between 3 and 7 p.m. Buddy, it was almost on the dot.
Yeah.
And so, we started having some conversations, knowing that we had been to every site. We had load tested every generator. We had done everything that we could possibly do. We had one site that the generator shut off. And in the generator monitor software, it said stopped with fault, I think.
Stop with fault.
And so I got on the phone with the relationships. We knew the fire department that was, as the crow flies, is a mile from this tower site. Hey, do you think you can access this site? We'll give it a try.
Yep.
So 20 minutes later, they call me back. Hey, we got to the site. The generator was in manual mode. We cranked it. It's running like a bag of butt, but it's running.
Yeah.
Hey, what the heck? So we're all right, well, it's good. So we let it go. 30, 45 minutes later,
Generator fails.
Dies again. All right. So John and I have a quick conversation. I think I'm going to try to get there. It's going to take me a long time because of the road conditions, but we're going to go. Normal driving every day, it's 45 minutes to an hour from where I live. So I was expecting a full 2 hours.
Yep.
And so I get in the truck and I start heading that way. Roads are pretty, matter of fact, about halfway there, I actually took the tire chains off of my truck because it was just beating me to death. There was plenty of traction. You know what, I'm just going to go do it.
Right.
And as we say here in the South, the bottom fell out of the clouds. And in that travel time, which was probably 5, 6, maybe 7 miles, I went from almost no ice on the trees to trees falling and breaking and carrying on. And I got to the gravel drive that goes up the mountain to the site. And I made the decision, this just isn't safe.
Yeah.
Made the decision to evacuate. I called you on the radio and said, I'm getting out. I got probably within a half a mile of the main road and had to put the truck in the ditch to avoid a tree falling. And so fortunately was able to pull out, we'll just say there was a vehicle that was willing to pull me out, needing to go the other direction. And I said, I tell you what, if you'll pull me out, I'll cut this tree out of the way. And he said, deal. And so we got going. But anyway, long story short, the site, we made the decision to take it offline. We left the network. That was the cool thing. We left everything, the network resources, capability, the microwave, all the backhaul stuff never went offline. It ran on battery until we were able to access the site about 10 a.m. Monday morning.
Yeah, and that was a smart move on our part. I mean, we build so much overlapping coverage in the radio side of our network that at that point, it was more important to maintain network structure and network resiliency to turn the RF side off, turn the radio side of it off, and maintain those microwave links and those redundant connections. That's a site that we use Starlink on.
Yep.
So, we've got, extra connectivity paths there. And, we load shed the control channels and some of the repeaters. And I think we got our load down to less than 20 amps off of those batteries. And there was, 800 amp hours worth of battery there. So in theory, it would have run a long time. So load shedding it remotely, we were able to keep that site online so that, if the power did come back, we could start everything back up. And, that was pretty cool to be able to load shed that down and not even affect the fire department that was at the bottom of the hill. So that was cool.
And I think that was something that was, for me, was really neat because one of the things that I did after, seeing what I seen, having real world view, how dangerous it got. I mean, we're talking a time span of about 30 minutes from the time it was completely safe, completely passable, to it was not safe at all, and we didn't need to be there.
Right.
So, but then I went back to my old days, my old emergency management days, and I said, there are people who need to know this. And I knew the utility company in that area that was also one of our customers was in the area. I drove to their operations center, had a face-to-face with them. And, of course, they had already made the decision. And then I went to the county's emergency operations center, did a face-to-face with their director. And this is what I saw. This is what I witnessed.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that. But, everybody, whether you're emergency services, whether you're critical infrastructure, whatever, you all have, there's thresholds. You have to make a decision. It's not safe. Or as a good friend of mine used to say, is the juice worth the squeeze?
Right.
And so what they did was they waited for that rain to stop falling, and they waited for the bulk of the trees to stop falling. By later on that night, they were back out in the roads. They were back out clearing trees. So they were back at it.
Yeah. By no means did they give up.
No, they did not give up.
Right.
At all. You have to make tactical decisions like that. And so we had face-to-face with the county and the customer and said, this is what we're going to do. Could you help us get a chainsaw crew together for Monday morning, and we'll go in, cut our way in, and figure out what's going on. That is where we learned something that we weren't aware of, and even people we talked to weren't aware of until we started going down the rabbit hole deeper and deeper and deeper. As we said earlier, the generator shut down, and our software said generator stop, fault. So we assumed there was a fault. Most commonly, it's going to be an oil pressure or something along those lines. And the fire department that was there, when they reported, they said, hey, the display doesn't show an alarm. It says it's in manual mode. What? And so, of course, they crank it up, but it dies again. Well, that day, I made the decision, I'm not going to do anything until I can review the alarms.
Yep.
So it was not in alarm mode on the controller. It had no recorded alarms in it. And so I'm like, man, what in the world is going on? We talked to our generator vendor, the company that manages the bulk of our generators, who said, hey, this is what we think happened. And when he told me this, I was like, yeah, right. You're so full of crap. He said, that regulator that goes into the propane tank, we think it froze up. I'm like, what? None of the others did. There's something else. There's something else going on. Well, I wasn't putting two and two together. That fire department that we keep talking about the same time our generator went offline, their station generator failed.
Yeah.
And it was a propane fire generator too. And, and he told me, hey, our generator's dead too. And I had taken a deployable generator with me if I could have got to the site. I dropped it off to the fire department thinking that maybe they would be able to get to it later tonight. Of course, they couldn't. But then when their generator failed, I said, you know what, we're not getting to that site till tomorrow. If you need to use that generator, use it. And they did.
Right.
And they did. But so I'm on the way up. We've talked to people. I'm on the way back up, Jeremy and I, along with the sheriff's office chainsaw team. And
y'all made quick access too. You must have had a lot of manpower.
It was the sheriff's office chainsaw team.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. Jeremy and I never cut the first tree going in there. They did it. They had already made it to the top by the time we get there. Those guys were absolute machines. I mean, they just
awesome.
But we got to the top, and I'm on my way to the top, and I'm thinking about what Walt and him had told us about the generator. And so I called my friend at the fire department. Hey, is your generator still dead? He said, yeah, they're going to be sending somebody up later today to look at it. I said, is it propane fire? Yeah, as a matter of fact, it is. I said, do me a favor, go look at that vent on the bottom of that regulator and see if it's froze up. And so he calls me back about 15 minutes later. He said, you can believe this, but it was. He said, they just cleaned it out and they cranked it and it's running like a top. And so, of course, we get the access to the top, and our site, it was froze up. The regulator was installed properly. The vent on the bottom of it, the screen was froze up. And so, of course, cleaned it out, and it cranked, and it ran for another 24, 30 hours, something like that.
Yeah.
And, so we started calling around. We started talking to other people and finding out that has happened in other cases before during ice storms where you had torrential downpours. And the belief is, I'm sure there's a scientific explanation somewhere, but the belief is that heavy rain was falling on that regulator, and as it dripped down past that vent, it was just getting enough condensation that it froze over that little protective screen and stopped the airflow, and the regulator failed. I think the point I really want to drive home is the amount of conversations that we were able to have, the depth that we were able to reach out. And there was a lot of out and back, a lot of give and take, a lot of give and give, rather.
Well, it's so cool that when we have a problem like this, I mean, you and I talked about it on the radio several times. It's so cool to be able to pick up the phone and call our vendor during the middle of this storm on the weekend. They answer the phone and just get them into the same mindset of problem solving that we are, and sharing their, 50 years of experience with generators, with us to figure out what's going on.
Well, and we talked about Walt with our generator company during Helene when we had to get somebody into the top of Cedar's Head. We put him on the phone with the guy that the Heart team member, the Honey Badger that flew in.
Right.
And that's when we were able to determine it was an alternator failure. Brand new generator, alternator failed. Things like that happen.
And then you went back after this whole thing and talked to every vendor that has anything to do with propane and energy, and they were all kind of scratching their heads like, too, yeah, well, okay, that happened. How do we solve that problem? And And I guess that's when it landed on my desk. So in a matter of about 12 hours, I became a propane regulator expert and figured out how they worked and what we could do to solve the problem. Everything from some custom engineered extension tubes to some bent sheet metal to go find the closest Home Depot and get some metal buckets. What we ended up coming up with, and this was just a temporary stopgap for us, was we went and found some metal buckets, and we cut a hole in them with a hole saw and connected the dots and slipped them down over top of the regulator and screwed them back together and created a shield around that regulator so that water can't get, up into that regulator, giving us a air gap around the regulator, and just, hopefully that's the fix to solve our problems. But sometimes it's the last minute. What can we do to fix this quickly because of maybe another impending storm that was on the way? So, we use some definite creativity to solve that problem and fix that issue.
Bear in mind, this is before they sent me out with a blowtorch to unfreeze them. So thank goodness he come up with this solution.
We didn't think a blowtorch on the propane lines was going to be exactly the right move.
I had a face shield.
Yeah, well, and a hard hat, right?
So, but that hard hat, but talking about the ice and regulator, one of the things that it's not uncommon for us to get ice here, but I wouldn't say it's common either. Right. And so I have a hard hat in my truck, and I have that hard hat because a couple of our customers require certain PPE to go into some of the sites, and one of them is a hard hat. So I got you made me some decals, this Fleettalk. I look official, I'm telling you.
Right.
And
safety vest and hard hat, you can get just about anywhere you need to be.
You're absolutely right. And when I pulled up, of course, the sheriff's office chainsaw team, those guys are amazing. I love those guys. They as soon as I got out and I put my hard hat on, of course, they started making fun of me.
Mm-hmm.
And no sooner than I shut the door on the truck, I started falling off of the towers. And they didn't make fun of me anymore.
Yep.
And they started, that guy's a nut.
Uh-huh. Yeah, right.
But it was, the hard hat. You mentioned the torch. We had with torches. As a matter of fact, I brought it with me. Well, I go big or go home. I map gas. I don't just do propane. But this is actually in my truck because I didn't get into the site without cutting the lock if the lock is frozen over.
Right.
So the hard hat, several times, I don't remember which site I was visiting, had a chunk of ice hit me in the hard hat, and it deflected it. And, it's a good thing it hit me in the head, because if it hit me anywhere else, it probably would have hurt me. You know?
Right.
But I think just that level of preparedness, the buckets over the regulators, during the freezing weather, that was the only generator we had an issue with in the entire system.
Yep.
That I really think that kind of contributed to our skepticism when Walt told us that's what he thought it was.
Yeah.
He was like, this was an ice storm. It was everywhere. What?
No, other than that, we all do a great job of monitoring the network and telemetry and have those alerts set up. And, I know most of the day Sunday we were, all glued to our computers just watching things if we weren't out in the mess. But I can't speak enough for the team's efforts, watching the network and supporting you guys out in the field and checking on each other. That was another big part of it too.
I was just going to go.
Our GPS tracking system we have was great because I could watch everybody moving around the upstate, and if they hadn't moved in so long, I was yelling at them on the radio, what's going on? Even when there was one asset that did look like it was off the road for a few minutes on the GPS, I didn't call him, but maybe I should have. So, but anyway, yeah, we did a good job of looking out after each other and making sure everybody was staying safe out there.
That one asset didn't spend much time at all on the side off the road. I assure you of that. I'm coming up the road, and you're trying to make the decision: do I go faster to get out of here quicker, or do I slow down to give myself some more reaction time? And so
you're running that trigonometry
you really
in your brain.
You really are. And so I'm coming up the road and dodging trees that are already down that have fallen since I come by 15 minutes prior. I see a tree. I see it, you can see it shake, and the ice kind of falls off of it, and then I see it start to come down. And so I start moving over, easing over, and it's clear I got to hit the ditch or I got to hit the tree, or the tree's going to hit me, whichever one. I was going to lose either way. So I hit the ditch. I took the ditch. Fortunately, there was a truck that saw the whole thing happen. And, I did not. I told the guys at DSC, I've been to a lot of disasters in my adult life and in my career. I've never been afraid to be in my vehicle in anywhere I've ever been. And I was afraid to be in my vehicle because when I got to come to the stop in that ditch, I'm beside a whole bunch of pine trees that are covered by ice directly underneath power lines.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I bailed out the passenger side, and that's when that truck stopped. Hey, you okay? Hey, you pull me out, I'll cut this tree. Deal. Because he didn't want to be there no more than I wanted to be there. Couldn't have been there 5 minutes. There's no way we could have been there that long. And by the matter of fact, by the time I had the tree cut up, he had me winched out. And that's how it worked. And, I felt like the risk. I felt like in that instance, the juice was worth the squeeze. So,
Yeah. And my favorite part of that story is that when something bad happens, I'm kind of the wild card of the company. Everybody assumes it's going to be me. And for you to be one of the most responsible here, that felt kind of good to see. They're worried I'm going to get out and go act crazy. So, it can happen to any of us.
But it was, but I think the thing of it was, and of course I came on the radio after I got out, got situated. I'm calling an executive decision. We are not coming north of this highway until this stops falling. And okay. There was no arguing. There was no, well, you know what? No. Okay.
Yeah.
We're good with that. And communicated with our customers. The customers understood it. Let's talk about what are some things that you thought, I'm going to put this in my truck just in case, preparing for this storm.
Food, of course, in the event you do get stuck out. But for me, it was warm clothes and a secondary pair of shoes. It was the funny part of that is I had actually, for Christmas, I got Matthew a pair of muck boots and went to exchange for the correct size, and then they gave me the wrong size again. Those muck boots come in real handy with all this ice and stuff.
The ones that you got me?
Yep, they're now mine. So when I come out the first day, I had my boots on and I'm ankle deep in it for a little while, and man, I'm going to try these on. And they fit. And so that's moving forward, that's going to be one that's a secondary pair of dry waterproof shoes in the truck. Because it is when that night I went up to Paris Mountain, it's quick how wet your shoes get walking around and how uncomfortable it gets, no matter how big a socks you got on.
It's funny. John talked me into buying those Kenetrek boots. I was proud to have, he bought us all those boots after Helene.
Right.
So I wore those that Sunday and my feet stayed dry, but my normal everyday pair that I have, I'm definitely, if Kenetrek by some chance watches this video, I am a huge Kenetrek fan now. We'll just say that.
Yeah, those are great boots.
What about you, Tripp?
I knew that the conditions were going to be a little bit different for me. I always have a stockpile of snacks in the truck and warm clothes and that sort of thing. But one thing I did was I went out and I bought a new booster pack.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a new booster pack
for all of our folks.
And I bought some jumper cables because my number one thought was, what's more likely to happen? A battery's going to die. This cold plunge is going to hit. Battery's going to die on a generator. I'm going to need to boost a generator off.
Yep.
So that was my preparedness ahead of time. I'm fortunate that I've got a big storage building at the house, and I've got pretty much everything you need to build a site at the house, located 2 hours south of everybody that was going to be impacted by the storm. So I knew I had enough spare parts that were easy to get to, so I didn't really worry about any of that. It was more, what is my most likely failure mode going to be, and it's a generator battery dying, running out of oil or something crazy like that. So, I made sure all my supplies were up to speed on that.
I went and bought, the three of us in the upstate, I bought one of these little 2,000 watt jump packs and, got them out, got them to everybody before the storm. Of course, I think we all had an older jump pack, but I thought that one, the weight, if I did have to hike in, because them big jump boxes we got, I don't want to tote them up and down. We had that. Now I think everybody had we all had a toe strap, which it works, trust me. We already talked about the propane. Well, map gas. I mean, you can't be from the South and not just go minimum.
I did go rob out of my Jeep that, one of these days will actually be back on the road again. I went and robbed all of my shackles and D-rings and stuff.
That is one thing I didn't have, and I did learn. Our new trucks don't have tow hooks on the front.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thanks for it. Yeah. Love the truck, but man, you need to have tow hooks. After Helene, every tech on the road has one of these now. Some of us multiple.
With chainsaws, 1 is none, 2 is 1.
Everything.
Or at least a spare bar when you get it stuck in a tree. You can abandon the bar and chain and get a new one.
Yeah.
One thing that I don't think that this was kind of a Google search prior to, because when I walked outside, up on Paris Mountain where I'm at, everything was a sheet of ice. It wasn't, slush you can walk in. Is a box of a few extra small self-tapping screws to make spikes in your shoes with. So when I went up to Paris Mountain that night,
you put those in your Crocs, right?
Yeah.
You put those in your Crocs in four-wheel drive.
As I start trying to walk back up my driveway, and Tripp got to witness me trying to take my trash down yesterday, sliding all the way down my yard. Quick way to, I don't have cleats I can wear in the ice, so I started looking it up, and just some self-tapping screws, of course, that won't go all the way through to your foot, but that you can drill into the bottom of your shoes to get the traction.
From the inside out.
What?
From the inside out, not outside in, right?
Well, we are talking about Cody.
I had 2.5-inch screws. I kept wondering why it hurt when I was walking, but
I'm going to send us, funny talking about the ice, I'm going to send you a picture of the chains when I sat on
Which
her call.
Which you can't buy in South Carolina, by the way.
I got these online.
Yeah, I went to order me some, and they're like a week or two out. So,
but when I said that on her call, everybody's like, right, until I sent a picture, and they're like, oh, dang, yeah, you really do.
Yep.
We all know, and for those of us that were affected during Helene, John and Tim took it personal. If they even thought we needed something or somebody in our family needed something, it just showed up. Sunday morning after Helene, I was on the phone with John. We were talking about everything. Everything was pretty stable at that point. And we were just talking about it. I'm like, my mother-in-law doesn't have power. We're trying to locate a generator for her. And it wasn't but maybe 3 hours. And Tim called me and says, hey, can you meet me at the Pickens Airport? I'm bringing you some stuff. And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I met him. And everything that he brought me, there was a generator for my mother. Who does that?
Yep.
So, but anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. I think for me, in my truck, I had everything I needed in my truck to get stranded in that weather.
Mm-hmm.
I even had a Sub-Zero sleeping bag that if I couldn't get anywhere, one thing, in wildland firefighting, one of the things they teach you, one of the first things you do is you establish a safety zone. So, and what's funny is you fight like you train. So on my way into that site we're talking about, I'm identifying safe places that I can get to.
No trees, no power lines, a good shelter.
Yes.
Good place to shelter.
Yep. And the closer I got to the tower site, the fewer those. Yeah. And, but so in my mind, I want to be able to be somewhere where I can stay in my vehicle and at least have some shelter from the elements. And, but I had my sleeping bag. I bought all of us in our area last year, Iron Infidel, big, I got a liter or 2 liter. I can't remember.
2 liter.
Big thermoses, insulated thermoses. And so I had that full. I had plenty of food, high protein foods. The only thing I didn't have was muck boots. That's the only thing I really didn't have.
Thanks a lot,
Put
Tractor
on your
Supply.
Christmas list for next year.
Yeah, I'm just teasing.
I felt prepared. I mean, I really did feel prepared. We had plenty of groceries at the house, plenty of groceries in the truck, generators at the house, all that sort of stuff. Felt good really felt prepared. Overall, felt prepared from a personal standpoint, from a company standpoint. We did a great job of, again, talking to our customers and checking on our customers before, during, and after the storm. And, proud of our response to the incident.
I think preparedness across the board, shuffled into the home life, because I feel the exact same. I knew that if I had to leave, I wasn't worried about anything at home because we were doing all that work on our stuff. Well, let me go ahead and do my stuff at my house.
I think that's one thing that really, me personally, I tried to push hard for us as a company is to start early, because I knew if we as a company got ahead of everything early enough, that would give us time personally to be able to do the personal things we needed to do. And it did exactly that. I appreciate you guys watching. If you've watched this long, it's a lot of fun. We do like sharing our lessons learned because we hope that other people will say, oh, I didn't think of that, and can make your networks, your systems more resilient. And likewise, we love hearing from you saying, hey, guys, did y'all think about this? We love getting that kind of feedback too. So we really appreciate you watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and not necessarily in that order. I think it's subscribe, like, and share. But
just do them all three.
Just do it and tell folks about it. And so from all of us here at Fleet Talk, thanks and stay safe.